Welcome to Dharma Wisdom Talks, where we come together to explore profound lessons from Buddhist philosophy, moral principles, and wisdom to live a life of peace and happiness. Today, we will discuss a very interesting and important topic in life: how can we distinguish between genuine advice and meaningless criticism? In a society filled with judgments and assessments, we've all likely encountered advice that seemed sincere, but was actually laced with sarcasm, or criticism that served only to satisfy the ego of the speaker. Some people genuinely want to help you, to see you grow and become a better version of yourself, while others merely offer comments to assert their superiority, without any real interest in your development. So, how do we spot the difference? And do the words of others truly serve a purpose, or are they just manipulations, or even envy, hidden behind their remarks? Buddhism teaches that in life, understanding and wisdom not only guide us along the right path but also help us gain clearer insight into the relationships around us, as well as the true nature of what others say and do. This discernment will not only protect us from unnecessary hurt, but will also help us grow and live a life that isn't swayed by negativity. In today's video, we will explore one of Buddhism's core truths: how to differentiate between sincere feedback and false criticism. Let's delve into some deep perspectives from Buddhist wisdom and learn how to identify truth in our relationships, so that we can live authentically, unaffected by external influences. So, let's begin this journey of discovery, and see how Buddhist teachings can guide us in facing life's challenges. Living without anyone disliking you is boring. The phrase "living without anyone disliking you is boring" presents an interesting viewpoint that can be analyzed from various angles, especially within the context of Buddhist philosophy. While it may seem like this statement encourages acceptance and harmony with everyone, from a Buddhist perspective, there are deeper meanings behind it that we can discuss and clarify. Accepting the truth of cause and effect and compassion. Buddhism teaches that in life, no one can avoid interacting with the emotions of others. It's hard to live without ever encountering someone who disagrees with or dislikes you, as each person has their own perspective and feelings. According to the law of karma, cause and effect, our actions and words will always influence others, whether positively or negatively. However, Buddhism does not encourage living simply to please everyone or to avoid being disliked. Instead, Buddhism points towards inner freedom, living in a way that is not overly affected by others' emotions or judgments. Non-self, anatta, and freedom from judgment. One of the core teachings of Buddhism is anatta, or non-self, meaning not being attached to the idea of self or to things we perceive as belonging to us. When we cling to the need for approval or to avoid dislike, we create suffering and become governed by the ego. If we live just to avoid being disliked, we fall into a vicious cycle of anxiety and fear of being judged. Buddhism teaches that when we let go of these attachments, we can experience freedom, peace, and achieve true contentment. The necessity of opposition and challenges in life. Another perspective is that opposition and being disliked are sometimes an essential part of the spiritual journey. Buddha teaches that in these challenges and difficulties, we can cultivate patience, forgiveness, and compassion. For instance, during his lifetime, Buddha faced many opponents and critics. Yet, he did not respond with anger or suffering, but always maintained a calm and compassionate attitude, understanding that such experiences were inevitable and part of the larger cycle of cause and effect. the impermanence of everything and freedom from emotional dependence. Buddhism emphasizes that everything is impermanent, including the love or dislike of others. Rather than paying too much attention to external judgments, Buddhism encourages us to look within and control what happens in our own minds. When we understand impermanence, we will not be overly affected by the fluctuating emotions of those around us. Illustrative story. The story of Buddha and the opposition from Devdatta. Devdatta, a cousin of the Buddha, repeatedly attempted to undermine Buddha's teachings. He even wanted to kill Buddha to take over his leadership position. However, Buddha never responded negatively to Devdatta's actions. Instead, he understood that these actions were the result of Devdatta's bad karma from the past, and Buddha never nurtured feelings of hatred toward him. The lesson. This story illustrates that being disliked or opposed is an inevitable part of life. However, rather than reacting negatively or with anger, Buddhism encourages us to view all things through the lens of compassion and wisdom. By doing so, we can overcome difficulties without being harmed, and maintain inner peace. Living without anyone disliking you may be an illusion, because life is full of differences and conflicts. However, Buddhism teaches us how to live freely, without clinging to the approval or disapproval of others. Instead of trying to please everyone, we should develop wisdom and compassion to face every situation with peace and without being swayed by emotions. Live in a way that allows your heart to always remain peaceful, independent of others' judgments. When you can face dislike without suffering, that is a sign of a free and mature mind. You have to accept negative words about yourself, because there's one thing you know, but often forget everyone has their imperfections, even the one who criticizes you. This phrase carries a profound lesson about forgiveness, patience, and awareness of impermanence in human relationships. It aligns closely with Buddhist philosophy, particularly in practicing compassion and accepting both our own and others' imperfections. Accepting the imperfections of ourselves and others. In Buddhism, we are taught to recognize that all of us have weaknesses and imperfections. Whether someone is a saint or an ordinary person, everyone has their flaws, and this is part of the phenomenon of impermanence and karma. This statement reminds us of humility. When we are criticized or insulted, instead of reacting with pride or anger, we should recognize that the person criticizing us also has their own weaknesses, struggles, and shortcomings. Both sides are experiencing difficulties and suffering in life. Buddhism encourages us to approach others with a compassionate mindset, understanding that every discord is simply the result of bad karma from the past. Awareness of impermanence. A fundamental principle in Buddhism is impermanence. Everything changes and nothing lasts forever. This applies not only to external situations but also to our own emotions and thoughts. Criticism, insults, and negative words will not last forever. They are mere moments, and if we can remain calm and not be swept up in our emotions, they will pass like a storm. When we understand that everything is impermanent, we become less anxious about the negative words of others. Instead of letting these words affect our spirit and emotions, we realize that they are just a small part of the continuous flow of life. Compassion and forgiveness. Buddha taught that when we face criticism or hatred from others, the key is not to respond with anger or resentment, but to show compassion and forgiveness. The person insulting you may simply be reflecting their own suffering, disappointment, or ignorance. In a famous story about Buddha, he was once verbally abused by someone. After the person finished their tirade, Buddha calmly asked, "If I offer you a gift and you don't accept it, who owns the gift?" The person replied, "Obviously, the one offering it." Buddha then said, "Similarly, if I do not accept your insults, they remain your anger alone." This teaches us that when we do not respond to criticism with anger or hatred, we have overcome attachment to negative emotions. Illustrative story. The story of Buddha and the opposition from Maudgalyayana. Maudgalyayana was one of Buddha's greatest disciples, famous for his spiritual powers. Once, while begging for alms, a person angrily insulted him. Maudgalyayana did not respond, but silently accepted the person's words, not allowing them to harm his mind. Later, when he returned and told Buddha about the incident, Buddha explained that just as the person had anger and negative emotions, Maudgalyayana himself also had his own flaws that he needed to recognize. Buddha taught that when facing negative words from others, we should not react with arrogance or defensiveness, but learn patience, forgiveness, and not cling to negative emotions. The lesson. This story shows that accepting criticism and negative words is part of the learning and spiritual process. Forgiveness and compassion help free us from anger and resentment, and they also allow us to maintain peace of mind. Accepting criticism and imperfection. When we face criticism or judgment from others, we should remember that everyone has their flaws and no one is perfect. What matters is not how we react to these words, but how we maintain inner peace and avoid being swept away by negative emotions. Criticism will not last forever, just as everything in life is subject to change. Let us hold compassion and forgiveness in our hearts, not only toward others but also toward ourselves. When we understand and accept the imperfections of ourselves and others, we will live a more peaceful life, unaffected by the words or actions of those around us. Only those who are inferior to you will sit and judge you, while those who are better than you no longer pay attention to you. This statement contains a deep perspective on self-development and how we deal with criticism from others. It's an interesting topic within Buddhist philosophy, emphasizing letting go and not clinging to the judgments of others. The difference between the skilled and the inferior. In Buddhism, one of the key teachings is to let go and not attach to the judgments of others. Truly wise and enlightened individuals often have no time to judge others. They have transcended feelings of hatred and envy and instead focus on developing themselves and helping others. On the other hand, people who are still living in selfishness and scarcity often find ways to criticize and harm others. Buddhism teaches that when we feel criticized, it is not a reflection of us but of the person criticizing us, and the important thing is not to let it harm us. A calm mind and not clinging. According to Buddhism, when a person reaches a certain level of wisdom and inner peace, they no longer care about the criticisms or judgments from others. They are not swept away by the negative emotions that others project because they understand the nature of impermanence and karma. The critics we face are often torn by emotions like jealousy, disappointment, or dissatisfaction with their own lives. If we live in inner peace, unaffected by others' scrutiny, we can overcome all challenges without being harmed. Developing wisdom and not letting criticism affect us. One of the greatest values in Buddhism is the development of wisdom, the ability to distinguish right from wrong and not letting others' scrutiny affect us. When we have wisdom and compassion, we will no longer feel hurt by criticisms because we understand that those words are merely a reflection of the speaker's karma and circumstances. Illustrative story. The story of Buddha and Ananda. One time, while Buddha and his disciples were meditating, a stranger came and began criticizing Buddha, calling him a fraud and using harsh words. Ananda, one of Buddha's closest disciples, was angry and wanted to react to the person. However, Buddha advised Ananda not to pay attention to the criticism. Buddha asked Ananda, if someone offers you a gift and you don't accept it, who owns the gift? Ananda replied, the person who offered the gift. Buddha continued, likewise, if someone wishes to criticize but you don't accept it, those criticisms belong only to them, and have nothing to do with you. The lesson. This story teaches us that when we do not accept criticism and maintain compassion, we will not be harmed. Truly mature and enlightened individuals do not concern themselves with others' judgments but focus on their own development and helping others. The important thing is to always maintain inner peace and not allow others' words to affect our actions and emotions. Don't worry about others' judgments. When you live with compassion and wisdom, you will not be caught up in the scrutiny or criticism of others. Those who are better or who have overcome scarcity and hatred will not focus on criticizing you. Scrutiny is a sign of inner scarcity. People who often criticize or harm others are usually those who lack inner peace and happiness. Instead of reacting to them, you can develop wisdom and compassion to not be affected by their words. When you feel criticized or scrutinized, remember that those words are not a reflection of you, but of the person speaking. As long as you keep a clear mind and are not swayed by criticism, you will be able to live a life of freedom, peace, and happiness. Why should you feel sorrow when hated? You should be glad that there's something about you that makes others feel envious or jealous. This statement holds a profound meaning about how we perceive and deal with criticism and hatred from others. This can be understood through the lens of Buddhist philosophy as an understanding of karma, compassion, and letting go. Understanding jealousy and envy. In Buddhism, jealousy and envy are seen as negative mental states arising from the three poisons: greed, hatred, and ignorance, fundamental afflictions of the human mind. When someone is envious of you, they are reflecting their own inner lack and suffering, rather than your own shortcomings. Jealousy often expresses dissatisfaction with one's own life, preventing them from feeling happiness for another's success. However, you should not allow their jealousy to harm you. Instead, understand that it is a part of karma, and a person can find peace by not being caught in the cycle of envy and criticism. Acceptance and letting go. In Buddhism, the suffering caused by hatred or criticism often comes from clinging to the recognition and affection of others. When we crave approval or affection from everyone, we become vulnerable when we don't receive it. However, Buddhism encourages us to practice letting go of these desires, to live with self-sufficiency, and not cling to others' judgments. When you realize that those who are envious of you are simply reflecting their own inner pain, you will feel lighter and not get swept up in negative emotions. Encouraging inner growth. The jealousy of others can be seen as a sign that you've achieved something they have not yet attained or cannot achieve. If you live with compassion and wisdom, you'll realize that rather than feeling sorrow, you should rejoice in the fact that you are on the right path. Buddhism teaches that challenges and difficulties in life, including criticism or envy from others, can be opportunities for self-reflection, patience, and compassion. Illustrative story. The story of Buddha and his cousin Devdatta. Devdatta, a cousin of Buddha, was always envious of the prominence and respect that Buddha received from others. Devdatta repeatedly tried to undermine Buddha, even attempting to kill him. However, Buddha was never hurt by Devdatta's jealousy and criticism. He always maintained a compassionate attitude and never responded with anger. Buddha understood that Devdatta's actions were merely a reflection of his inner suffering, and rather than responding with hatred, he taught that criticism and judgment were not important. What mattered was the peace within. The lesson. This story demonstrates that when others are jealous or critical, it is not something to be sorrowful about. Instead, it is an opportunity to develop patience, compassion, and wisdom. Buddha did not let Devdatta's jealousy affect him and continued his path of teaching without interruption from external challenges. Do not let jealousy hurt you. When others feel envious or criticize you, you should not feel sorrow. It may be a sign that you've achieved something they haven't, or they are reflecting their own inner pain. Rather than feeling hurt, you should rejoice because you are on the right path. Let go and live in peace. Buddhism teaches us to let go of desires for affection or recognition from others. When you do not cling to others' judgments, you will not feel sorrow and can live a life of freedom, peace, and happiness. Consider jealousy and criticism from others as part of karma. Do not allow it to make you suffer. Instead, use it as an opportunity to develop patience, compassion, and wisdom. When you maintain inner peace and are not influenced by others' judgments, you will truly achieve inner freedom. When others hate you, it's completely normal. You can't make everyone love you. So let their words stay behind you. This statement reflects a profound view on living with equanimity and not being affected by the judgments of others. It's a topic deeply aligned with Buddhist philosophy, particularly when it comes to letting go, cultivating compassion, and living with inner peace. Acceptance of criticism and hatred. In Buddhism, one of the key principles is understanding the impermanence of everything in life, including the love or hatred that others may direct toward us. Criticism and hatred from others are simply temporary reactions, not permanent truths about who we are. Buddhism encourages us not to seek to please everyone because this is impossible. Every person has their own viewpoints, emotions, and understanding, and we cannot control them. Only when we let go of the expectations for the affection and approval of others can we live a life that is free and peaceful. Non-self and letting go of judgments. One of the most important teachings in Buddhism is the concept of non-self, anatta, not clinging to the ego or personal identity. When we are overly concerned with what others think about us, we bind ourselves in anxiety and suffering. Buddha taught that if we truly understand and practice non-self, we will not be affected by others' judgments or hatred. When faced with criticism or hatred, if we maintain a mindset of not clinging to those emotions, we won't suffer. It is only when we allow ourselves to be hurt by what others say that we let ourselves be influenced by negative emotions. Overcoming judgment through wisdom and compassion. A hallmark of someone with Buddhist wisdom is the ability to view situations objectively, without being swayed by emotions. Instead of reacting to hatred with anger or sorrow, a Buddhist practitioner uses compassion, understanding that the person who hates may simply be reflecting their own suffering. This also means that when you face criticism, instead of feeling hurt or seeking revenge, you can learn to empathize, forgive, and even wish them well. This is the way to liberate yourself from the pain caused by their negativity. Illustrative story. The story of the Buddha and his critics. One time, while Buddha was teaching the path of liberation, a stranger came and harshly insulted him. Buddha's disciples were furious and wanted to retaliate. However, Buddha calmly said to them, "When someone gives you a gift and you do not accept it, who holds onto the gift?" His disciples replied, "The giver holds onto the gift." Buddha continued, "In the same way, if I do not accept the criticism and hatred of this person, it is their anger, not mine." The lesson. This story teaches us that if we do not accept criticism or judgment from others, they cannot harm us. In fact, when we maintain peace within ourselves and are not swayed by what others think, we will be able to live freely and peacefully. Buddha never allowed the hatred or criticism of others to interrupt his teaching because he understood that these were simply the reactions of others, not the truth of who he was. Don't worry about others' judgment. When you live in equanimity, without clinging to the recognition or love of others, you won't feel hurt by their criticism or judgment. What's important is to live in alignment with your true self, not allowing hatred or external evaluations to affect your mood or actions. Non-self and letting go. Buddhism teaches that when we do not cling to the ego or personal identity, we will not be swayed by negative emotions. Criticism and hatred are not your issue, they belong to the person who criticizes. Let those words stay behind you and continue on your path. Learn to face criticism and hatred with serenity, wisdom, and compassion. When you understand that everything is impermanent and that everyone has their own suffering, you will easily transcend others' judgments and live a life of freedom and inner peace. Hi Nh Da Ng. This teaching, rooted in Buddhist wisdom, offers practical guidance for dealing with the negativity or hatred that others may direct towards us. By cultivating detachment and understanding, we can free ourselves from the grip of external judgments and live with a peaceful heart. Tears are not water to be shed over trivial matters. Strength lies in overcoming pain and living authentically. This powerful statement conveys a profound message about personal growth, courage, and self-respect in life. It emphasizes a value not only essential in everyday life but also deeply connected to Buddhist philosophy about resilience, letting go of expectations, and living authentically with oneself. Suffering as part of the spiritual path. Buddhism teaches that suffering, dukkha, is an inevitable part of human existence and serves as an opportunity for spiritual growth. Every form of suffering, whether physical or emotional, can be a valuable lesson that helps us understand the impermanence of life and deepens our spiritual understanding. In Buddhist thought, suffering is not something to avoid but something to confront and transcend with wisdom and compassion. When we learn to face suffering without allowing it to pull us backward, we become stronger and more insightful, gaining a deeper understanding of life's true nature. Strength and resilience in the face of adversity. Buddhism encourages us to live with equanimity, not to be swept away by negative emotions. While suffering is unavoidable, it is our reaction to it that defines us. Instead of drowning in tears and sorrow, Buddhist teachings urge us to cultivate a mind that is not controlled by pain, but instead rises above it, continuing on the path toward enlightenment. Strength, in Buddhist terms, is not about never feeling pain, but rather about the ability to rise again, learn from failure, sadness, and challenges, and continue progressing on the spiritual path. Each time we overcome suffering, we grow and become wiser. Living authentically. A core principle in Buddhism is living truthfully with oneself. Fakeness, pretension, or living to seek pity from others not only leads to a meaningless existence but also damages the soul and inner peace. Buddha taught that when we live authentically, we need not worry about what others think of us. What matters is living in alignment with our true selves, with compassion and wisdom, without clinging to fame or the approval of others. A person who lives authentically does not worry about gaining others' favor because they understand the impermanence of life. The love or criticism of others is fleeting. Instead, they focus on their spiritual practice and living a meaningful life. Illustrative story. The story of the Buddha and the false monk. Once, Buddha and his disciples met a renowned monk in the region. This monk appeared very pious but was living a life of pretense, always seeking attention and pity from others. One day, Buddha advised him, "Live truthfully with yourself, and do not chase the admiration or pity of others, because that will not bring true peace. Only when you live according to your true nature will you find real peace in life." The monk listened to Buddha's words and began to change his way of living. However, in the beginning, he found it difficult as he was so accustomed to seeking attention. But gradually, he realized that living authentically meant he no longer had to worry about what others thought, and he felt much lighter and freer. The lesson. This story teaches us that living authentically is a difficult but essential path to inner peace. When we live with pretense to gain pity or approval from others, we will always feel lacking and insecure. However, when we accept ourselves and live according to the principle of truth, we will experience true peace and freedom. Suffering as a path to growth. Buddhism teaches that suffering is not something to be feared but a chance to learn and evolve. When we confront and transcend suffering, we become stronger and wiser. Don't live to seek pity. Living falsely to gain sympathy does not bring real peace. Buddhism encourages us to live truthfully, without worrying about the recognition or criticism of others. When we live authentically, not only do we find inner peace, but we also allow others to feel the sincerity and tranquility we radiate. Strength and fortitude. Strength is not about never experiencing pain, but about the ability to stand up after every fall, to learn, and to grow from difficulties. Buddhism advises us to live with inner peace, unaffected by the ups and downs of life, and not to lose our equanimity in the face of life's challenges. Hi Nh. Suffering as growth. Suffering is an inevitable part of life and can be a powerful catalyst for spiritual growth if we face it with wisdom. Living authentically, the pursuit of external validation or pity is futile. True peace comes from living in accordance with one's true self. Strength through resilience. Strength lies not in avoiding pain, but in overcoming it, learning from our challenges, and continuing our spiritual journey. In sum, Buddhist wisdom encourages us to face life's difficulties with courage, to embrace the truth of our own nature, and to find peace in authenticity and resilience. Thank those who hate you, at least they help you see who's truly by your side. This statement carries a profound message about truth, awareness, and gratitude for life's challenges. It also aligns well with key Buddhist principles, especially impermanence, anicca, wisdom, and the ability to recognize the nature of relationships in life. Awareness of impermanence and the changing nature of relationships. In Buddhism, one of the most essential teachings is impermanence, anicca, which reminds us that everything changes, and nothing lasts forever. Relationships, too, are subject to change, and we cannot expect all people to always love or treat us well. People who once seemed like friends might alter their attitudes or even turn against us when circumstances shift. This is a natural and unavoidable part of life. Buddhism teaches us not to cling to any relationship or place unrealistic expectations on others because change is the only constant. Gratitude and wisdom in perception. Buddhism encourages us to view every situation, including adversity or hatred, with gratitude and wisdom. When someone hates you or acts in hostility, it is not a sign of failure or suffering, but an opportunity to see who truly stands by you. Gratitude for those who oppose us helps us discern which relationships are genuine. They reveal who is genuinely our friend and who only pretended to be. This is a valuable lesson in developing discernment and understanding in relationships. Not allowing hatred to harm you. Buddhism teaches us not to allow the hatred or criticism of others to harm our inner peace. Those who dislike us may be reflecting their own struggles, opinions, or feelings, not the truth about us. When you see hatred from others with equanimity and do not cling to it, you will be able to move beyond the hurt. On the other hand, if you try to please everyone and lie falsely, you will always be anxious and never truly find inner peace. Letting go of attachment to others' affections. One of Buddhism's key teachings is non-attachment and not clinging to the affections or judgments of others. If you live dependent on the love or approval of others, you will easily feel disappointed and hurt when you are disliked or betrayed. Instead, learn to live with equanimity, not allowing relationships to affect your mood or inner peace. When you stop clinging to others' affection, you will find freedom and peace of mind. Illustrative story. The story of the Buddha and the betrayers. Once, while Buddha was teaching, a person who had once held him in great respect suddenly betrayed him and criticized him harshly. Buddha's disciples were furious and wanted to retaliate. However, Buddha calmly taught them, if someone gives you a gift and you don't accept it, the gift still belongs to the giver. Likewise, if I do not accept the criticism and hatred from another, it remains with the one who gave it. Lesson: this story teaches us that the hatred and betrayal of others are not the issue, it's how we respond to it. Buddha never allowed others' betrayal to affect his path to enlightenment. He taught that when others hate you, it is an opportunity to recognize who is truly your friend and who is only pretending. Gratitude for hatred. When someone hates you, it could be an opportunity to recognize who truly stands by you and who was just pretending. Be grateful for these challenges, as they help you shed insincere relationships and encourage you to grow. Non-attachment to others' affection. Buddhism encourages us not to cling to the affection or approval of others. When you live this way, you won't be hurt by hatred or criticism, and you can maintain peace of mind. Equanimity and wisdom in facing difficulties. When facing hatred, instead of reacting with anger or sorrow, we should maintain a peaceful attitude and use wisdom to understand that the hatred of others is not a reflection of who we are but a reflection of their own inner turmoil. Let those negative words and actions stay behind you. Hi NH-NG. Awareness of impermanence. People's attitudes and relationships are always changing. Recognize the transient nature of human connections and do not become attached to them. Gratitude in adversity. The criticism or hatred of others can reveal the true nature of relationships. Be grateful for the opportunity to distinguish genuine relationships from false ones. Non-attachment to approval. Clinging to the affection or approval of others leads to anxiety and suffering. When you let go of that attachment, you find freedom and peace. Equanimity and wisdom in facing hatred. Embrace difficulties and criticisms with equanimity. Recognize that others' hatred is more about them than about you, and don't let it disturb your peace of mind. By applying these Buddhist principles, you can live a life where you are not shaken by others' judgments, instead using them as opportunities for growth, self-awareness, and a deeper understanding of the impermanent nature of human connections. When you haven't even got enough time for those who love you, why spend time on those who don't deserve it? This statement carries a powerful message about valuing time and making wise choices in relationships. It aligns perfectly with Buddhist principles, particularly in managing time wisely, letting go of unworthy relationships, and focusing on things that bring peace and happiness. Impermanence and time management. In Buddhism, impermanence, anicca, is a core teaching, reminding us that everything in life is transient and nothing lasts forever. Time, too, is fleeting. Every moment that passes can never be regained. Hence, the importance of cherishing and using time wisely is emphasized. We each have a finite amount of time in life, and wasting it on things that do not add value is unwise. The Buddha teaches that if we do not appreciate time, we risk missing the opportunity to practice, grow spiritually, and live a peaceful life. Instead of investing time in relationships that are not truly beneficial, we should dedicate our time to loved ones, meaningful activities, and spiritual practice, all of which lead to enlightenment and happiness. Choosing wisely and letting go. Buddhism encourages us to let go of things that no longer serve us or bring peace into our lives. If a relationship is not contributing to happiness, peace, or spiritual growth, continuing it only causes harm to ourselves. This also applies to how we spend our time. If you feel someone doesn't deserve your attention or love, spending time with them can drain your energy. On the other hand, those who truly love you, who bring joy and peace into your life, are the ones who deserve your time. Developing compassion and understanding. While Buddhism teaches us to have compassion for all beings, regardless of their actions, this doesn't mean we should give all our time and energy to those who do not contribute positively to our lives. Compassion is not self-sacrifice, it is about loving and helping others in a balanced, wise manner. Buddhism encourages us to understand when it is appropriate to help and when it is necessary to let go. By managing our time effectively, we not only protect ourselves but also become more capable of helping others in a meaningful way. Time is a precious resource, and we should invest it in nurturing positive relationships and activities that promote personal growth. Illustrative story. The story of the Buddha and the old friend. Once, the Buddha met an old friend who had been his fellow practitioner in the past. However, after leaving the monastic life, this friend had fallen into a life of vice and negativity. When they met, the old friend tried to convince the Buddha to return to their former lifestyle. With compassion, the Buddha replied, "I cannot return to the old path, for I have chosen the path of enlightenment. I will not let time be wasted on anything that deviates from my higher goal. However, I do not abandon you. If you truly wish to change, I will show you the right path. But if you do not sincerely want to change, I cannot continue to give you my time." Lesson: this story teaches us that in life, we must learn to choose relationships that align with our own path. The Buddha did not abandon his old friend, but he did not allow this relationship to consume his time and energy. His path to enlightenment required focus and dedication. If the old friend was truly sincere about change, the Buddha would assist. If not, he would not allow his time to be wasted. Time is precious, every moment is a gift. Buddhism teaches that we must value each moment and use it wisely. Time should be spent on meaningful relationships and spiritual growth, not wasted on unproductive or harmful connections. Wise relationship choices, choosing to spend time with those who love and support you, those who bring peace and joy to your life, is a wise decision. If a relationship does not promote your well-being, letting it go is the best way to protect your inner peace and focus on what truly matters. Compassion is not self-sacrifice. Compassion in Buddhism does not mean giving endlessly to others at the cost of your own well-being. It is about understanding when to help and when to set boundaries. You can love and care for others, but not at the expense of your own peace and happiness. Letting go to protect your peace, sometimes, letting go of relationships or situations that drain your energy is necessary. The Buddha teaches that we should not allow relationships or attachments to consume us. When we make these wise choices, we protect our peace and focus on what truly brings us closer to enlightenment. By applying these principles, we can learn to appreciate time, choose relationships wisely, and cultivate inner peace and happiness. Those who are sincere will speak directly and offer advice to help you improve. Those who only speak to satisfy their own judgment have no real desire for your betterment. This statement carries a profound message about honesty, sincere help, and the ability to discern between constructive advice and self-satisfying criticism. It aligns perfectly with Buddhist philosophy, especially regarding how we perceive advice and engage in self-development. Honesty and compassion in giving advice. In Buddhism, compassion, karuna, is one of the key virtues. Compassion is not just unconditional love, it is the act of helping others overcome suffering, grow, and become better. When someone truly cares for you, they will not hesitate to point out your flaws or mistakes, but this will be done with compassion, aiming to help you improve and progress. Their approach may be direct, but the intention behind it is always one of care and the desire for you to become better. Such advice is not criticism but guidance, meant to develop your virtues and wisdom. This is the essence of a genuine relationship, a willingness to tell the truth for your benefit, not to satisfy personal egos or judgments. Advice given to satisfy personal judgment. On the other hand, those who speak only to fulfill their own desire for validation do not care whether you improve or not. They may offer criticisms without any real concern for your growth, or even use criticism to elevate themselves or assert their superiority. These types of remarks are often harmful and offer no real value. They simply cause hurt without leading to any positive change. Buddhism teaches us that we must develop wisdom, prajna, to differentiate between sincere advice and harmful criticism. We should not let ourselves be hurt by words that do not have the intention of helping us grow. Recognizing the difference between genuine advice and mere judgment is crucial in navigating relationships and personal growth. The benefits of sincerity in relationships. Buddhism encourages us to build authentic relationships that support mutual growth. A true friend will always encourage you, point out your shortcomings so you can correct them, and walk with you through life's challenges. These relationships are rooted in understanding and compassion, not in envy or a desire to see others fail to feel superior. Genuine advice helps you mature and become a better version of yourself. Instead of feeling criticized, you should thank those who offer constructive feedback because they care about your development. The foundation of such relationships is love, respect, and the shared goal of mutual growth. Listening and discerning useful advice. Buddhism also encourages right listening, samyaksrava, listening with a clear and open mind, without rushing to judge. When receiving advice, we should examine whether it is truly beneficial for our personal development. Constructive advice will help us improve our weaknesses, enhance our abilities, and cultivate our virtues. In contrast, words that serve only to satisfy one's ego will hurt us without bringing about any positive change. Buddhism teaches us to neither be arrogant nor overly self-conscious when receiving advice. Instead, we should approach it with an open heart and a clear mind, practicing compassion and wisdom in how we accept and integrate feedback into our lives. Illustrative story. The story of the Buddha and the blacksmith. Once, the Buddha was walking along a road when he came across a blacksmith who was very proud of his skills and believed himself to be the best in his trade. The blacksmith, full of self-importance, boasted about his abilities. However, the Buddha, unaffected by the blacksmith's ego, gently advised him, saying, "Pride and self-satisfaction will stop you from growing. Always remain humble and open to sincere advice from others. Everything can be improved if you are willing to learn and not be content with where you are." The blacksmith, taking the Buddha's advice to heart, began to listen more attentively to others and approached life with humility. Over time, he not only became a better craftsman but also developed humility and respect for others. Lesson: this story highlights the importance of honesty and humility in personal growth. The Buddha didn't just teach the blacksmith about his craft but also about the importance of humility and the willingness to listen. This shows that those who truly want you to improve will always offer advice to help you progress, rather than satisfying their own ego or superiority. Genuine advice helps you grow. Those who truly care for you will speak honestly and offer constructive feedback, with the intention of helping you improve. Their advice is meant to guide you toward positive change. Distinguish between advice and criticism. Not all words of advice are valuable. Some people speak only to satisfy their own need for validation and will criticize without concern for your development. We must learn to differentiate between helpful advice and mere judgment. Compassionate listening. Buddhism teaches us to listen with compassion and wisdom. When receiving advice, we should assess whether it contributes to our growth. We should open ourselves to feedback without pride or defensiveness, recognizing its value in helping us improve. Sincerity in relationships. Authentic relationships are based on mutual respect and the desire to help each other grow. A true friend will always encourage your development, even if it means pointing out your weaknesses. The foundation of such relationships is compassion and the willingness to help each other become better versions of ourselves. By cultivating wisdom and compassion in our relationships, we can learn to appreciate Through the insights shared in today's video, we've explored ways to distinguish between genuine advice and criticism that merely satisfies personal egos. In life, we cannot avoid encountering criticism, but the key lies in how we receive and respond to it. Buddhism teaches that discriminating wisdom, prajna, is a crucial tool to avoid being lost in the sea of judgments and opinions. Genuine advice is always meant to build and develop, not to hurt or pull us down. When someone truly cares about your well-being, they will offer constructive feedback with love and understanding, not with imposition or harm. These pieces of advice help us recognize our shortcomings and improve ourselves, enriching our spiritual path and personal growth. On the other hand, criticism stemming from a desire to satisfy one's ego only causes hurt, makes us feel judged, and can lead to feelings of inadequacy. Buddhism encourages us not to allow the negative words of others to disturb our inner peace. Only wisdom and understanding can help us overcome the pitfalls of worldly judgments and critiques. Finally, I want to remind you that every relationship in life offers an opportunity for learning and growth. Keep your heart open to receive sincere advice, and do not let baseless criticism harm you. Live authentically, and invest your time only in those who truly love you and wish for you to become the best version of yourself. Thank you for watching today's video. If you found these insights helpful, don't forget to hit like and subscribe to stay updated on future content from Dharma Wisdom Talks. Feel free to leave your comments, questions, or personal reflections below, as we'd love to hear your experiences and viewpoints. Wishing you a peaceful day filled with wisdom.